Welcome back, everybody. Our next guest has advice for business leaders in today's increasingly uncertain world. Joining us right now is Harvard Business School professor Ranjay Gulati. His new book is How to Be Bold, the Surprising Science of Everyday Courage. And Ranjay, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here with you today.
I was going to start by asking you what courage is. Maybe we should start, though, with what we were just discussing, and that's how you differentiate uncertainty and risk, what the difference is between those two.
So Frank Knight, famous economist, made this distinction between risk and uncertainty, that risk is where you kind of know the distribution of outcomes. You know, you can say probabilistically 10% chance of this, 20% chance of this. Uncertainty is unknown. I don't know the distribution of outcomes. You're really walking into the fog. And we're pretty good at risk. We can quantify risk, mitigate risk. That's modern day finance is entirely about kind of making money in risk. Mm-hmm. Uncertainty is where the human brain is not very good at dealing with that, because uncertainty actually activates the primal human emotion of fear, right back to the reptilian brain. And it doesn't lead to fight or flight. It usually leads to freeze or flight. Mm. And so how do we cope with uncertainty in business, in life, is kind of a big question. And today we have manifest uncertainty, technological uncertainty that you were talking about, financial uncertainty, geopolitical uncertainty, health uncertainty. So in this context, it's natural, normal for us to freeze up.
I was getting at the question of how do you describe what courage is, and I'm trying to put it in today's headlines. Okay, we're looking at the government shutdown. There are some people who would say courage is not bending to the Trump administration for these Democrats. There are others who would say courage is not bowing to your progressive left-leaning party that is threatening to throw you out of a job if you don't do what they want. How do you define what courage is?
Well, courage, very simply, is taking action in the face of fear for a noble cause. The problem is courage doesn't belong to any one ideology. Right? Everyone wants to own courage and blame the other as the coward. And I think sometimes, it's easier to draw lines than to build bridges. And I think we're in this kind of jingoistic mode where we can go after the other side and say, you're the bad guy, it's your fault. I think the courageous thing sometimes to do is finding that common ground, in working it through. And I think that's on everybody, not on one side or the other. But I think courage, that requires taking on your own side, taking on your own constituencies. And that can be scary. So that's why courage is not easy. It's not for the faint-hearted.
What did you find in terms of the benefits of courage? I know one part of the book suggests that companies that invest in a down market have done very well.
Yeah. So I think, first of all, there's a distinction between courage and reckless. And I think that's important to understand. But, sometimes you have to understand that in uncertain times, how do you invest for growth? How do you lean into uncertainty? That maybe these are moments for us to invest in a very methodical way. The temptation is going to be to freeze, to stop, this too shall pass.
We don't have a down market right now, though. We're talking about the market's right at all-time highs.
The market's are at all-time highs, but uncertainty's also picked up. If you look at earnings calls, in the last quarter, CEOs used the word uncertainty 3 times more than they did before that. So everyone's latching onto this. There's a lot of uncertainty around them. And I think that creates possibility where you may freeze up. And I think it's important to understand that this is the time when you want to lean in towards looking for opportunities. Like, where are the breakaway opportunities in our markets? I think that's where the key is. The temptation is going to be to say, let's see what happens. Interest rates are going to get cut. What's going to happen in the market? Let's wait and see. I think sometimes this is the time when you have to say, where do we double down? Where are the opportunities for growth? How do we think about where technologies are moving? What are our AI plays? Like, do we do one or multiple plays at the same time? So I think that's where, you have to lean in. And I think the tendency is that the human brain is wired to freeze in the face of uncertainty.
The only thing I would argue against that is sometimes it's good to freeze. If you froze during some of the market crashes in the past and you stayed in and did not pull stocks out, you've benefited. Stocks continue to climb eventually. If you're a long-term investor, you're better off not following the crowd, not necessarily jumping in and saying, okay, I got to do something here, I got to move.
Excellent point. I think that's a very hard thing to do, where sometimes doing nothing is the best option and the more prudent option over here. I think that the point I wanted to make is that, you have to have a forward-looking stance, which is one about playing to win. I think sometimes we start to play not to lose. We go into a defensive posture. To use a sports analogy here, in soccer, you see teams where they have the ball, but they're holding it in their half. They don't want to attack. But you're absolutely right. There is definitely a discrimination between saying, where do I lean forward, where do I hold back? But either way, I think the worst thing you can do is get into a defensive posture where you're saying, we're playing not to lose, don't hold on to what we have, and let's conserve and wait and see. That, I think, is the challenge.
Can you tell me the first 10 minutes when you wake up at 3 in the morning, how do you feel courageous in the fight? I need some help with that. I was just looking up a quote from a Clint movie, but late at night when the demons come, that's the only time I really feel uncertain about things. It's first thing in the morning. And then, by the time...
Shake that off pretty quickly.
I do.
By the time you're here.
I do 150 push-ups, and the endorphins definitely help. But there are times where it's like, wow, I can't get up. I want to stay here in this warm bed. I need courage. But not Dan Rather courage.
No.
Remember he used to say, he used to end every newscast with.
Yeah, but I think, let's think about daily life. All of us are, I think we have to imagine the possibility of what I'm able to do. If
right
I look
away.
At,
I wake up thinking that. Get at it.
Yeah.
That's Pompliano. Get at it. It's going to be a great day. What do you do? Do you ever just think, Jesus, I can't do this?
I think to myself, I'm going to spend a fabulous morning with Becky Quick.
Becky, okay.
And then I'm going to spend a morning with Joe Carnahan.
I think the same way. I'm going to spend a morning with Andrew. That's what I do too. And
he's ill right now. So.
Right,
and I need courage for that.
So, it's interesting you bring that up. So I talk about how ordinary people kind of find courage and resource themselves to have courage. One of them is what is called emotional regulation. How do they find calm in the midst of chaos?
Alcohol?
And alcohol is definitely a resource, but how they create rituals. I mean, think about Zelensky, in the middle of early days of war.
Think about him,
He's telling jokes.
Yeah.
Humor is a way. Rituals,
Rituals is important.
Do it. Adele, when she goes off
Without thinking.
Yeah. Adele, when she performs, you know what she does before she performs? She takes out a picture of Celine Dion and looks at it.
Yeah.
That's her ritual. You look at tennis players, Roger Federer, all these people look for ways to kind of... So calm is just one way to kind of like, hey, how do I keep cool heads and then go forward?
Keep your head down and your feet moving.
The other one is conviction. What do I believe in? What am I here to do? And I think a lot of people resource themselves by a certain belief system that this is my purpose. This is why I'm here.
Should I lay down to listen to the rest of it? I think I'm going to listen.
No. Don't get closer to me.
I'm going to feel like I'm on the couch.
For coming in today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.